Earlier this year, a poll from a Singaporean think tank found that the majority of people in ASEAN countries, which is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, would support China over America. This is despite the fact that for the longest time, ASEAN has been viewed as kind of a counterweight to China, standing up for the interests of Southeast Asian nations against China in the region. But now, all the people in those countries love China. So why did this happen? In this video, I'll be going over three main reasons, some of them about why they like China, some of them about why they just don't like America. The first one is Chinese infrastructure, the second one is Israel-Palestine, and the third one is the politics at home in America. Now, the first reason why this could be happening is because of Chinese investment in the region through the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, I put this first because I'd say it's probably the least likely to be the reason why this shift is happening, and I'd say that's because globally and in this region, the Belt and Road Initiative has received a lot of skepticism. For example, in this same survey, they found that over 65% of respondents said that China's Belt and Road loans would have a negative effect on the economy. But then on the other hand, people say that, but even just the optics of the infrastructure is enough to sway the populations. For example, in 2021, China opened Southeast Asia's first high-speed rail with Indonesia. And it's like, okay, most Indonesian people say that they're skeptical of Chinese loan schemes, but it's impossible to quantify the extent to which seeing this shiny new Chinese infrastructure has bolstered their opinion of the country, or even just convinced them that the country is more credible and knows what they're doing. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the Filippatos YouTube channel. Now, another reason this might be happening is Israel and Palestine. Americans tend to think of Muslims as being over here, but we forget that there's actually a lot of them over here, in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brunei. And it's no coincidence that in this poll, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Brunei were some of the countries with the strongest polling for China. A lot of the time, when Israel starts with its shenanigans, we know generally who's going to be making a big fuss about it: Iran, Egypt, Saudi Arabia. But here in the West, we completely forget that there's hundreds of millions of Muslims on the other side of the planet who are also quite offended and feel involved and like they have a stake in the conflict. This could also be one of the reasons why Joe Biden and his administration have been harsher on Netanyahu recently, mostly about the invasion of Rafah, but it could also have to do with the US's global image. At some point, no matter how much the US believes that Israel and America have an unshakable bond and they'll never remove their security commitments, if it's going to cost them their relationships with every other country in the world, especially key countries like those in ASEAN, which have strategic value against China, then the US isn't going to continue doing it. And this is all worsened by the politics at home. If Donald Trump is to win the next election, then America's support for Israel is going to become even stronger, worsening the reputation of America with ASEAN Muslims. And also, the issue of infrastructure, Donald Trump has made it very clear that he would have an isolationist approach to being president. So the optics of Chinese infrastructure and their presence in the region would become even more pronounced in contrast to an isolationist America than they are now. Now, granted, it's also important to acknowledge there isn't really any evidence that Indonesians are following American politics closely enough to catch all of this, but it's still just something to consider. It's also important to remember that the poll that we're talking about didn't actually say how much do you love China. It said out of America and China, who would you side with, and the majority said China. So that doesn't even necessarily mean they love one or the other. It's the best of a bad bunch for a lot of people. But regardless, it's still important to consider. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see another one, check out Why Won't China Just Collapse Already?, which is why Chinese people aren't mad at the Chinese government.